You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru attı. Tümer gitti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Cuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 192 of the Black Eagles podcast. I am your host, Sinan Schwarting, live from New York City. For anyone following me on Twitter or Instagram, you know it's been a rough week. Not away from Beşiktaş, right? Away from all the injuries. I think probably a lot of people expected maybe there might not be an episode. Kaan almost took over the reins. I almost gave them to him, in fact, but I thought there might be a point where I needed, to get my mind off of all of the negative and focus on something else. And so sure enough, here we are. I won't talk about it, I won't say any more about it. If you're curious, check out the Twitter account or Instagram. Thanks so much to all the well-wishers, everyone lending their support. I appreciated that very much. Normally I wouldn't have even been as public as that, but this was obviously a sort of crazy situation that hit me pretty hard, to be honest. But nonetheless, I guess normally I'm here for you folks, doing this service to Beşiktaş and the community. This time it's a little different. It's sort of a therapy for me, chance to put my mind on something else. So thanks for bearing with me, folks. Let's talk Beşiktaş. Crazy week all around for the team, right? Injuries one after the next. Just it seemed like even when we weren't playing, there were guys getting injured somehow. We were short 8 out of 11 starters coming into this Champions League match against Ajax. To sort of preview the match a little bit, coming into the match, Ajax had previously just defeated FC Groningen at home, coming off of it was a 3-0 victory. Prior to that, they had defeated Fortuna Sittard on the road 0-5, and prior to that, they had beaten Cambuur 9-0, and then before that, in the Champions League, they had defeated Sporting on the road in match day 1 of the Champions League 1-5.
Operation is in effect as of right now.
So they hadn't scored less than 3 goals in their previous 4 matches, and they're coming against a Beşiktaş side that would be featuring certainly Serdar Saçi, right? Second career start. Certainly his first, his Champions League debut. So, obviously nobody had high hopes. I think most people expected not just to lose, but to lose terribly. We were all just basically hoping to not be embarrassed, you could even say, I think, right? But so, with that said, let's talk about the actual lineups, and obviously we'll start with us. Ersin Destanoğlu was in the goal, so he was back after Mert Günok. I guess, he came under criticism in the all-time match, perhaps unfairly. I think a keeper, it's always lazy to target a keeper when typically a number of other players have to screw up before it even comes to that. But so, nonetheless, Ersin was back, and I think, I mentioned this, I think we knew we were coming into that previous match against Altay shorthanded. We knew we would probably concede goals. We wanted Ersin to have confidence, and so I think it was actually a tactical decision. Anyway, back line, strange one. Serdar Saci, of course, I mentioned him already. Second career start. And Fabrice Nsakala. Fabrice Nsakala certainly making his first start for us as a central defender. Against Altay, Serdar Saci played, but Atiba Hutchinson started as a central defender with Nsakala on the right as a right back, which was already pretty weird. But even Atiba went down to injury in that match. So, something very much unorthodox in the way of Fabrice Nsakala and Serdar Saci on the back line. Valentin Rosier played as a right back, which probably doesn't surprise anyone. And that was obviously a great boost. But as a left back, we saw a debut in the way of Umut Meraş. At least his first start as a Beşiktaş player since he signed with us in the off-season. And the midfield, we had Joseph de Souza in the back, as usual. And up ahead of him, interestingly, John Bozdoğan and Salih Uçan. So, completely new midfield. Kenan Karaman was our right wing, with Ridvan Yilmaz our left wing. So not a single sort of natural winger in the bunch. And then Michy Batshuayi up front. For Ajax, they had Remco Pasveer, the 37-year-old keeper. Lisandro Martinez, Argentinian defender, next to Hurrien Timber, or Jurien. Daley Blind on the left side of their defense, and Nusair Mazraoui on the right back, as their right back, sorry. Steven Berghuis started for them in the middle of their midfield, next to Ryan Gravenberch, very young Dutchman, and Edson Alvarez, very talented Mexican player. As their wings, of course, they had Dusan Tadic on the left side, and Antony, the much heralded young Brazilian, on the right side of their midfield, with Sebastian Haller up front, Ivory Coast striker. So no real surprises for Ajax. Pretty much a full strength squad for them, and for us, I mean, maybe not surprises given that we were digging through the barrel at the bottom of the barrel for this one. But yeah, I mean, certainly a surprise, big picture as far as what we had to play in a huge match, perhaps our biggest of the season thus far. I don't even think perhaps. I mean, many of us were hoping to compete for second, and so Ajax would have been the competition for that. So this is a huge disappointment for us, no doubt. I mean, just going into it, having very little hope to none, was not ideal, you could say. But let's talk about the match. And sure enough, 34th second, it would be Gravenberch who would show Ajax's intent and sort of fluid, free attacking style by getting a shot off in the 34th second. And they immediately made it clear that they were not playing around. But still, the first really great chance fell to Beşiktaş. Batshuayi got the ball on a really nice pass from Joseph, actually. Kept him just onside, and he got the shot. It was pretty good, low, past their keeper, Pasveer, and it hit the post. And it was just solid, like it didn't just sort of dink it kind of, I mean, it really bounced right out from the post. It could easily have been a goal. Much like the first Champions League match, Michy Batshuayi almost getting an early goal. In fact, it's happened, well, anyway, yeah. I'm not going to criticize Batshuayi on this. Did great to provide that chance and very nearly gave us a huge, epic goal. But yeah, sure enough, in the 12th minute, just a few minutes later, Antony would also hit the post. Not as nicely, not as close. I mean, the shot wasn't nearly as frightening for us as I suppose Batshuayi's was for them. So I'll give us that. But they did make it clear that they were not laying down for this one, and they were going to bring it to us. And given our back line, that's bad news. And then, sure enough, 16th minute, officially the 17th, Dusan Tadic would pretty much school the entire right side of our defense, unfortunately. Valentin Lozier getting completely fooled, juked out of his boots, just about. And then Serdar Sachi, the young kid, also sort of landing on his butt with no touch on the ball. And then finally Fabrice Nsakala diving in at the last second to try to make the final impact, but not enough. Tadic found Steven Berghuis, who put it away neatly. And Ajax had the 1-0 lead. Low shot across the box. Not much Ersin could do with it because he was pretty much alone coming in with momentum towards the goal. So obviously, nobody was thrilled with it, but nobody was shocked either. They were looking like they had all the intent in the world, by all means. And then after that, they weren't done. They were certainly not done. 25th minute, lots of action, bouncing all around. Nice crossing. Haller, a little lacking, honestly, in this one. But he would miss a header. It would Anthony, I think, would get control of it. Finally, would result in a cross to Edson Alvarez, who would head it towards Ersin, who would make a decent save. Not a difficult one for him, but still just 1-0, despite them showing a lot of pressure and having much of the ball. 37th minute, Haller finally gets a header on target, and it's a real dangerous one. He has it down into the ground, just like you're supposed to. But Ersin makes an A+ save, diving kind of in the wrong direction, recovering and punching it out well. 38th minute, this should have been the 2-0. Realistically, I think, but it drops to Tadic, and he misses kind of wide open goal. But sure enough, just a couple minutes later, so I guess it's still 2-0 because I don't know if they scored this goal or the other one scored, because then we have the ball and whatever. But we probably go into the half 2-0 regardless. But yeah, Berghuis finds Sebastian Haller for a lovely cross onto his thigh. There's some discussion of maybe it touched Serdar Sachi instead of Haller, but it's credit to Haller, the assist to Berghuis, and sure enough, 2-0 going into the half. We have been completely outclassed, as you'd expect, but sort of, you can't say bend but not break, because we broke twice, but still, not, I don't know. It's still also just halftime, and we probably also are expecting they'll score more at this point. So, whatever. It is what it is. At the half, Gökhan Töre would come in for Ridvan Yilmaz. Many would be curious about that. Turns out Ridvan's injured. We'll find out how badly. We don't know yet. Also, Ozan Özyakup would enter the match for Salih Uçan, which would actually prove fairly effective, it would seem. Ozan really brought a lot of energy into this match, which, is good going forward, obviously. Anyway, 50th minute would be the first action. Tadic, A+, dribbling, getting around a number of guys again, sending in a lovely cross to Haller, whose shot would be saved nicely by Ersin. And then, sure enough, just a couple minutes later, 52nd minute, and this is about where things would turn around, and for a moment here, I don't know if you could say Beşiktaş looked the more likely side to score, but nobody looked likely to score. And Beşiktaş was effectively kind of back in it. At least back in the game, not score-wise, of course. But so then, sure enough, in the 52nd minute, Can Bozdoğan, a lovely ball for Batshuayi to run onto, and Batsman would sky it, unfortunately. So, I think it's a case of him raring to go, just getting a couple of touches and just being a little too enthusiastic with it, right? But he was still getting into these chances, and on another day, perhaps that's 2 goals in the Champions League, or at least 1. And that's what getting those chances is all about, and getting into those positions. And then, just 10 minutes later, in the 62nd minute, Beşiktaş would score. But somehow, it would be called off. And I think we can all agree that we were screwed on this one. The ref, Frenchman, did a terrible job, called a foul in the build-up, shoulder-to-shoulder contact. Kenan was the larger guy, and the Ajax defender fell down. Graciously, I must say, Ajax players and coaches have acknowledged that was a goal. Timber, Jerian Timber, or whatever his name is, himself mentioned that was a clean goal that had no business being erased. So, mysteries abound. I heard that this French referee supposedly was like schooled in the Galatasaray Academy. Lots of conspiracy theories going around now. Who knows the reality here, but certainly it was a terrible call, and he did a terrible job all around. Like lots of 50-50 calls, 100% going to them, to Ajax. So, I mean, perhaps there's this perception that Ajax should be the better side if you know the circumstances. So, that can maybe flavor how a referees a match. But I don't know. Nonetheless, he did a terrible job and clearly took a goal off the table that should have stood. 65th minute, Ozan to Batsman to Ozan, a little neat 1-2, resulting in Ozan kind of having a one-on-one with the keeper. And I don't know if Pasveer saves it or what the deal was there. If the shot even gets off, if he just sort of snuffs it out before he even gets it. But nonetheless, nothing comes of it. Still 2-0. 68th minute, Tadic finds Haller, and it looks like they've made the breakthrough, but it's a little high for Haller, or Haller misjumps, mistimes his jump, and so can't quite get his head onto it, lands on the top of the goal. 84th minute, Neres forces Ersin to make a really nice save, low from distance, but gets it on target. I missed a few substitutions here, so Neres being one of them. David Neres came into the match in the 71st minute for Anthony. David Klaassen, who I mentioned had been injured in the previous episode of our podcast here, he came in for Steven Berghuis, who, obviously a goal and assist for him. For Beşiktaş in the 73rd minute, Berkay Vardar, who had never even featured on Beşiktaş's bench previously, entered the match for Umut Medaş. Moving all sorts of things around. I think Nsakala went to left back, and maybe Joseph sat back into the... No, it was Berkay Vardar and Serdar Saci as central defenders. So, it shuffled things around a little bit. Worth noting that both were pretty solid, Serdar Saci especially. But I think Berkay actually was like 4 for 4 as far as challenges, tackling. So, I don't know. Maybe something to look forward to in that pair. Central defensive pairing for the ages, for the future. But in the 75th minute, John Bozdoğan would get a yellow card. I don't recall that, actually. I was probably really bummed about the goal they'd stolen at that point. And in the 92nd minute, Michy Batshuayi would get a yellow card, I think, for arguing with the ref. But anyway, that would be it. 2-0 at the end of the match. Real quickly, I'll mention Ajax had 71% of the ball, 3.56 XG. We had a 0.88 XG, so it is what it is. They had 22 shots and 7 on target. We had 4 and none. So, obviously Benoit Bastien, the French referee, helped them a bit, but even still, I think nobody would argue that Ajax didn't deserve a victory here. They did quite well. Quickly, some stats. I've already given you the possession and XG stats. I'll mention they had 627 accurate passes to our 208. Yikes. 3 times the amount. They completed their passes at an 89% rate to our 72%. Quickly, I'll go over player stats. The players who have been adjudged to have had excellent matches, not a single Beşiktaş player among them, from best to, least best. Steven Berghuis, Ryan Gravenberg, Sebastian Haller, Dusan Tadic, and Julian Timber, all rated highly. And the very good, all again Ajax players: Lisandro Martinez, Edson Alvarez, Nusair Mazraoui, Daley Blind, and Anthony. The next player on the list happens to be a Beşiktaş player. The highest Beşiktaş players in terms of ratings were Salih Uçan, Ozan, and Valentin Rosier. Remco Pasveer, their keeper, Michy Batshuayi, and Serdar Sachi, all sliding above a 6.5. So in the good match zone, didn't do anything negative. So again, Serdar Sachi, Michy Batshuayi, Valentin Rosier, Ozan Özyakup, and interestingly, Salih Uçan rated the highest. I don't know about that. I don't think Salih. I mean, Ozan I thought had a more positive contribution. I'm going to give my man of the match to Serdar Sachi. 2-0. Right? A 2-0 match in a game we all expected to lose, way worse. Serdar played the full 90 minutes. He had 17 accurate passes at a 71% rate, in a match where we were very inaccurate all around. He managed a shot on goal. It was off target, but, whatever. He had 39 touches, and he won 6 duels and only lost 1. So he was actually quite effective. He cleared the ball 4 times, 2 headed clearances. He was 1 for 1 on dribbles attempted and succeeded. He lost all of his aerial duels, so that's something. He's a bit short, so he'll need to work on that. But he had 2 interceptions, 4 recoveries, so every other aspect of his defense was solid. He gets my man of the match. I'm not going to harp on any more stats. Without any further ado, everyone's favorite, Kaan Bayazit, for this week's #Kaan's Corner.
Well, this was a dreaded game, I think, for many of us Beşiktaş fans. A tall order for us with all the injuries and even a COVID case with Montero. I think we all kind of went into this game thinking, let's just limit the damage. And yeah, I mean, I think even the most skeptical of Beşiktaş fans probably expected to lose this game against Ajax. I mean, seeing how they very easily beat Sporting in Lisbon. It was definitely a game where we went into with the idea of this is probably going to be a loss. Especially you're missing so many players. Like against Dortmund, we missed a few players, right? We missed Vida, we missed Alex Teixeira. The thing with Alex is like he's definitely a quality player, and you would imagine he will become one of those pivotal players in the team once he's fit, once he goes firing on all cylinders. But we have to be honest, like so far, he isn't that yet because he's not played that much. He hasn't established himself all that much yet. But of course, Domagoj Vida is our defensive leader, so that was a big miss against Dortmund. And you can see as soon as you miss a couple of those key components, it's going to be really difficult even at home to get a result. So going into this Ajax game, I think even with missing Vida, missing Alex Teixeira, we probably were there like, oh, okay, maybe we can get a point or something. But then, of course, all hell broke loose over the last 2 weeks, and we lost basically 90% of our team. I don't think I have to tell anyone, but we didn't have Nkudu, we didn't have Lauren, we didn't have Gezal, we didn't have Pjanic, we didn't have Atiba, we didn't have Vida, obviously, we didn't have Wellington. So yeah, we missed a ridiculous amount of key players, Alex Teixeira as well, of course. So going into this game, it was always going to be about limiting the damage. And I think to some fans that's more of an ego thing, but in my head it's more about goal differential thing. Sporting Lisbon lost very heavily at home, 1-5 to Ajax, while we only lost 1-2 at home to Dortmund. So we have, for the third place right now, the goal differential advantage. And that is important going forward because I think, it all depends. we're going to get an international break soon. We're going to recover all the players. If those players manage to stay healthy, we still have a chance for second place, but we have to be realistic. Ajax have 6 points right now, and Dortmund have 6 points right now. Second place is going to be very, very difficult. We're going to have to win both Sporting games. We're going to have to beat Ajax, and then we're going to have to get something probably against Dortmund to even have a chance at second place. Because you would imagine Ajax beat Sporting at home, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Ajax gets something against Dortmund in their 2 matches. I think it's going to be very difficult to get top 2, but the third place is still very much up for grabs, because right now, of course, Dortmund beat Sporting 1-0 at home. Which was a very flattering scoreline for Sporting, because Dortmund had 3 goals disallowed. Erling Haaland wasn't even in the squad. So, you would imagine Sporting, when Dortmund is at full force, even in Lisbon, they'll have a tough time. So it's for us, it was about limiting the damage, like I said. And I think we did that. We lost 2-0 to Ajax. But you have to keep in mind, we had Serdar Saci, who played his second ever professional game. And we had a lot of, let's be honest, reserve players, backup players, not first choice players that were asked to do a job. And all in all, I'm relatively happy with the performance. I think we did concede a little bit too easy on both goals, but at the end of the day, against a team like Ajax, who have been scoring, they scored 29 goals in their previous 7 games or something this season. So they score easily. I do think we conceded a little bit too easily, but at the end of the day, I think if you would have said, okay, we're going to lose 2-0, given the circumstances, I think most people would have said, you know what, that's not the end of the world. We very much saved face. We very much saved our goal differential. I think we limited the damage there. The big thing that bothers me personally is I was very bothered by the officiating in this game. You go into this game and you're 2-0 down at halftime, and it's going to be difficult. You're realistically not going to get points. Probably. But then in the 60th minute, we score a clean goal. Kenan, with a good physical duel, shoulder to shoulder, wins the ball, and then the referee blows his whistle and he scores like a fraction after. Like, it's not like the goalkeeper didn't try to save it. It's not like the other defender didn't try to do anything. It's not like he blew the whistle and then 5 seconds later Kenan scored. No, the ref blew his whistle a fraction of a second before Kenan scores. And that's so wrong in 2 ways. One, the referee, even if he thinks it's a foul, he can wait 2 to 3 seconds so that he can allow VAR to check. But no, he immediately blows his whistle because he's a and he was like at the end. I really hated the referee the entire game, quite frankly. I felt throughout the game, I really felt like he was calling every 50-50 one way. He was, and there wasn't even that much. Like, it was a pretty clean game from both sides. Like, there weren't any dirty challenges, mostly. I think 2 come to mind that were a little devious. I mean, there was one position where there was a clear high boots, where I think it was Anthony from Ajax tries to cross the ball, but it's a very high boot, and he kicks Nsakala in the face. He makes connection, not much studs or anything like that, but the guy just waits to play on. Like, Nsakala literally gets kicked in the face, and he lets that go. And then later, there was a pretty hard tackle from Daley Blind in the second half, where I really thought, okay, that's a yellow. That's just a clear yellow card. And I think Ajax finished the game with no cards at all. We got 2. And one was for a professional fall from Jan, which you can say, okay, fine. And then the second one was right at the end, in the 93rd minute, for Michi Batshuayi, because the defender, I forget his name now, acted like he got hit in the face, where there was no contact with the face whatsoever, mind you. And he books him for that. And in the Champions League, 2 yellow cards is a suspension. So I really feel like that was bullshit. Also, the linesman was looking straight at it. That I really thought that was harsh, especially given that he didn't give Daley Blind a card for his hard tackle, and didn't do anything about a kick to the face from Al Sakala. But then he disallows our clean goal for a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge. And mind you, even the player that got fouled said after the game that he could have seen it go either way, really. That he wouldn't have been surprised if the ref would have let play on and the goal would have been scored. And all the Dutch all the post-match commentators in Holland, Jan Boskamp, Wesley Sneijder, Rafael van der Vaart, they all said the same thing. They didn't understand why the referee blew his whistle there. That it was never a foul. Rafael van der Vaart even said, normally you should continue play on there, and then you can always go look at VAR, and then the goal should stand regardless. So everyone agrees, even the Dutch, that was a clean goal. And look, I'm not naive. I don't really believe that we would have gotten a point if we had scored there. But that goal could potentially make the difference at the end, because it's now the goal differential basically is shrunk in favor of Sporting, right? Like they gained the goal on us, so to speak. And it was a rightful goal. Like, it shouldn't be getting taken away. I was very happy with the officiating in the previous match, the Spanish ref Lajos. I really thought he did a fantastic game in the Beşiktaş Dortmund match. I thought he had a fantastic match. And this is one of those things where I'm happy this wasn't ever really a competitive match. Because if this would have been a competitive game, that referee would have made the difference. He was terrible. He was giving every 50-50 to them. And he was really hard on us, I felt, with the 2 yellows, given the fact that they didn't get a single card, I believe. And then the big things that stand out to me is our wrongfully disallowed goal, and not even calling a foul on Ensakala getting smacked in his freaking face by a boot. Like, that was so ridiculous. Seriously, that reminded me of the what was it, Slovan Bratislava game a couple of years ago, where we lost in added time because the striker, I think it was, I don't remember, he kicks our defender in the face. The ball goes out into corner, and they score on the resulting corner. But that should have always been a foul, and it's the same thing here. Should have always been a foul, and he just let play on. So you're allowing players to get kicked in the face, but a shoulder-to-shoulder challenge, ooh, that's where you draw the line. My God. I don't like that. You know, you're already so handicapped with all the injuries and everything. And yeah, you know, I do think Ajax kind of took their foot off the gas pedal, especially the second half. Like in the first half, they continued, like even after 2-0, they continued to press, they continued going for the second goal, and they never really stopped going for a goal. But you could definitely see that they took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit in the second half. And I am very much convinced that had we scored, they probably would have pushed that foot down a little bit more, and they probably would have gotten the third goal. But that's football, though. Like, maybe they would have pushed their foot down and not found the goal. And maybe we score a carambol goal right at the end. Like, that's football. You're supposed to let the game flow. It's not up to the referee to decide who gets to score and who doesn't. Like, that goal getting disallowed is just 100% wrong. And that guy should not get a match again in the Champions League this season. But, you know, it's a Turkish club. Nobody gives a fuck. So he probably will get more games. He probably will get rewarded, because apparently this was the same ref that officiated Frankfurt Fenerbahce a couple of weeks ago, and he pulled some strange stuff there as well. So whatever. It's I mean, I guess we can be happy that after this match we get to be angry at the referee. I guess that's a positive in a weird way, because that means we don't have to be angry at our team for embarrassing us or whatever. I think all credit goes to the players. Lots of young kids getting thrown in front of the lions, so to speak, and I think they stepped up. It wasn't by any means a heroic performance, but we saw a lot of promise. Can Bozdoğan had a good game. Serdar had a good game. It was promising. We had another young youth player coming in the second half after Umut Meraş got injured, so that was good. I also think Ersin made a good performance. Like he made, I think, 5 saves or something like that, and a couple of good ones. And Ersin continues to make a good impression in the Champions League, and that's positive as well. And I'm really liking Serdar Saçi. I liked him against Altay. The thing I worried a little bit about there was some not so good in the build-up, a little bit wayward passing, maybe a little panicky sometimes to just blow that ball up the field. But defensively, he looked pretty solid. I think he lost Haller a few times, but I mean, he just turned 18 a couple of months ago. He's very young, and if he can stay healthy, he might have a really bright future ahead of him. I really hope that these games will have convinced Sergen of Serdar's value, and that in the future, if Wellington or Vida and Montero aren't available, that Serdar is going to be the first option, not Mehmet Topal. Because Mehmet Topal is there for squad depth, right? Like you don't win anything by playing Mehmet Topal. He's there if you need him as a last resort. You should always, if you have viable youth alternatives like Serdar now, they should always play, because they are the future. We had this with Ersin, we had this with Ridvan, now we're having this with Serdar potentially as well. And the same with Can Bozdoğan. So those guys, they need to get more minutes. I hope they will. Also with the foreign limit, having a viable alternative at the center-back position, a Turkish alternative, is a valuable thing. So let's hope that we get to see Serdar more and that he continues to improve, because he really looked like a good player. And hopefully he can continue to impress. And it's not, you shouldn't underestimate this. Like playing in front of 50,000 in the Champions League like this, and standing, holding your own like that. It's a good positive sign that this kid has what it takes to make it. Let's hope that he stays spared of injuries, unlike Alpay Çelebi, and that he continues to grow. I think there were a lot of positives to be taken away from this Ajax performance. Now we have one more game before the international break. Hopefully we can keep the points at home against Sivas, which will be tough. Sivas are a tough team, but we have Batshuayi again. And I think if we had Batshuayi against Altay on Friday, we would have won that game, because Kenan really missed a lot of opportunities there, and I think Batshuayi would have put those away. So even with missing a lot of players, I hope we can get the points against Sivas at home. Hopefully we can recover a couple of injured players, and then it's international break. I really hope that the players that are injured now, maybe if they just have recovered, like let's say Ghazal is back for Sivas. I don't know if he is, but if he would be, I really hope he doesn't go to the international to the national team. I hope these players have the wherewithal to know that they need to take it easy for 2 weeks, or however long the international break is. Let's hope after the international break we recover most of our players and we can start firing at all cylinders again, because it would be such a shame with such a great squad and playing good football that we would throw it away domestically because of injuries. So let's hope that these injuries stop now, because I've had my fill and I'm sure you have had too.
Thank you very much, Kaan Bayazit, once again. Very good points all around. Good analysis by Kaan. I think we both agree about Serdar. And it's a shame, obviously, we couldn't bring out a full complement of as far as our squad goes. But it was what it was. And given all of the handicaps we had going into this one, I think 2-0 is almost a dreamlike score in a lot of ways. It's the least amount of goals they've allowed, almost, certainly in a little while. It's not actually. They've allowed, I think, I forgot who it was, to be honest. But I think, I can tell you actually who it was. Let me just tell you who it was. Against Zwolle, a victory, they won 0-2 on the road. And against FC Twente, they drew 1-1. So wasn't the best defense they faced, but also it wasn't by any means the best defense we would have put out against them. And it was one of their weaker performances as far as offense. I mean, they could have scored more also. But I guess on the other hand, we could have scored too. Batshuayi twice. One goal was literally erased for no good reason. So I think we have a lot of... We can hold our heads high, you know? I really do believe that. Quickly, let's talk about our table here in the Champions League. It's worth doing now that there's a couple matches under our belt. Ajax is in first place in the group because they have that big goal differential advantage, +6 because of the 5-1 win against Sporting. Dortmund is obviously in second, having also won both of their games, so both of them have 6 points, but they only have a +2 goal differential. +1 against us, +1 against Sporting, where they defeated 1-0. We are in third place at the moment, -3 goal differential, with Sporting at -5. So that's a positive, I guess, going into now the double tie against them. And so before we do that, we'll be speaking with someone from the Sporting EN 160 podcast. More to come on that. I hope I'll be in better spirits by then, obviously. One last thing I should mention before I go here. Beşiktaş will be hosting Sivasspor, at least it's at home. But Sivas is tough. We're obviously not going to have a full complement of players. We're going to have many injuries. Who knows what they'll be. We'll let you know when the time comes. But so that match is on Saturday, October 2nd, noon here in New York City on the East Coast of the United States. Check your local listings as always. I mean, I guess I could sort of briefly mention that like last episode, there were a couple matches withstanding before we knew what the table would look like. So after 7 matches played, Fener is in first place with 16 points. They defeated Hatay 1-2 on the road. It's questionable stuff. Could have been a card or sort of a penalty on a handball that they just mysteriously didn't give out. But anyhow, Trabzon's in second place with 15 points, 4 wins and 3 draws. I didn't mention Fener has 5 wins and 1 draw, so they're doing quite well thus far. Altay is in third with 5 wins and 2 losses, also 15 points. They're level on points with Trabzon. And then Beşiktaş is in fourth place, 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Hatay is underneath us in fifth with 13 points, Konya with 13 points, and Alanya with 13 points. Alanya drew Trabzon 1-1 this week, so they're hanging in there. Then Kayseri with 11 points, Fatih Karagümrük with 11, and Galatasaray finally in 10th place, also with 11 points. So that's where we finally stand in the tables going into this coming week against Sivas. Let me quickly talk about Sivas. They're having, not the best season. They're in 11th place, 2 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. So far this season, they have lost to Konyaspor. They have lost in the Europa Conference League to Copenhagen after beating Dinamo Batumi. They lost to, I mentioned Konyaspor. They also lost to Trabzonspor. So they started out the season poorly. Then they drew Göztepe 2-2 at home. And then they drew Fener, though, which was a good return, I suppose, drawing 1-1 in Istanbul. And then they faced Gaziantep at home, drew 1-1, not ideal. But then on the road in Yeni Malatya, they won 0-1. And then in this last week, they defeated Fatih Karagümrük 4-0. And I'll quickly talk about that one. They obviously had no trouble scoring 4 times, so that's not ideal, given where we are at the moment. Now, I'll talk about their lineup, however. In goal, they have Muammer Zulfikar Yildirim, 31-year-old Turk. On their back line, Dimitrios Goutas, a Greek defender, with Bakasetas and Siopis and Pelkas. Greeks are on the rise in Super League, so we'll see about him. Caner Osman Pasha, 33-year-old Turk. So they're not young on that back line. Uğur Çiftçi, 29-year-old Turk, is their left back. Ahmet Oğuz, 28-year-old Turk, is their right back. In the center of their midfield, Hakan Arslan. Jorge Felix, 30-year-old Spaniard, is also in the center of the midfield next to Faisal Fayer, Moroccan 33-year-old. Their wingers are, of course, Max Alain Gradel, perhaps the most dangerous that they have. He was solid at time. Pedro Enrique, Brazilian 31-year-old, is their right winger. And then Olarenwaju Kayode, 28-year-old Nigerian striker, has just a goal so far this season, I believe. But, you know, in 5 matches, just the 1 goal. So he's not exactly on great form. But nonetheless, they scored 4 goals in their last match. So they'll be looking to add, to their mantle and add to our misery. The good news as far as injuries goes is that we know, Sergen Yalçın said everyone will be back after the international break, which will be after our match against Sivas. And there was one exception, that was Mehmet Topal. I don't think that's the worst news. I mean, he's not seriously injured either, so he'll be back eventually. Not soon, perhaps, but soon enough. And yeah, I mean, that's all we have today, folks. Thanks for bearing with me. Yeah, all I really have to say is tell your loved ones how you feel. Don't wait. You never know if there's gonna be tomorrow. You never want to have things left unspoken, and bad things can happen to people, folks. So let your loved ones know what needs to be known. And of course, follow us on Twitter and all that stuff. I'm not even going to go through all that. I will say, of course, let's go Beşiktaş! With a little less vigor than usual, but, with all the heartfelt love for the club. Stay tuned for more, folks. We will be back again soon. I will probably be here for it. If I can make it through this one, I'm sure I can make it through that one. But, if not, we'll have something for you, folks. Fear not. Certainly some more hashtag, whatever it might be. Kaan's Corner, Ask Aaron. Anyhow, folks, see you next time. Peace out, everyone.
Beşiktaş International hopes you enjoyed this program.